Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TRVL Travel Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Snell, and this is our 15th episode. And I'm very happy to welcome to the podcast an old friend of mine, Lisa LaPointe. She is a wildlife conservation expedition photographer with an absolutely incredible story within the travel and tourism industry. So Lisa, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Greg.
It's a 9-hour time difference between us right now. Lisa's in California, Southern California, where it's sunny and warm. And I'm in North Germany, where it's quite cold and very windy. But yeah, I'm happy that you made the time to join. Thank you. Could you introduce yourself to the listeners and the viewers?
Sure. As Greg said, my name is Lisa LaPointe, and I work around the world in the travel industry, both as a photographer and a guide. So mostly in the polar regions, but I've worked across all 7 continents.
Yeah, you have quite the story. So that's very modest of you to say, but I met Lisa in Antarctica in 2023. And yeah, you have just an amazing history working as a photographer, professional travel photographer. You know, your wildlife images are absolutely incredible. And I want to know more about you. So I know you grew up in the US. I mean, you're in California right now. Tell me about your childhood. Where did you grow up? What state?
I grew up in Ohio, northern Ohio, near Toledo, where there weren't too many wild areas, but I made do playing in the lakes and rivers there, and always just dreamed of seeing the world and didn't go too far away for college. I ended up at the University of Michigan, where I studied biology with a focus in medicine and neuroscience, but
Okay.
always had that dream of travel, always loved photography, always wanted to see more. And after college, I really started to travel in earnest.
Okay. Yeah. It's University of Michigan's, that's really close to where I grew up in Toronto.
Okay, yeah,
Actually, a lot
right
of,
across the lakes there.
yeah, exactly. A lot of my, family friends actually were Michigan University football fans, the Wolverines.
Yep. And I
The,
went through a very good period in Michigan football. So it's pretty fun. We won the national championship my first year.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, spending time around the Great Lakes can be pretty good for nature as well. I mean, you definitely get all 4 seasons, that's for sure. How far south is Ohio from Michigan? Is that sort of in the same area or?
Ohio's just south of Michigan as a
Mhm.
state, but I grew up in the Toledo area, only about 20 minutes or so from the border. So to be honest, I thought of myself more as a Michigander.
Mhm.
Growing up, my majority of my family was in Michigan. I spent my summers there with my grandparents on the east side of the state. So yeah, lots of time on the Great Lakes, sailing, boating, playing in the water.
Yeah, it sounds like my
I always
childhood.
had a love for the water growing up.
Yeah, we used to go to Lake Huron every summer,
Yep,
and
Lake Huron. So we
yeah,
really were just across the water from each other.
yeah. It's my parents now live closer to Detroit than they do to Toronto, which is
And my
kind of
parents live
crazy.
on the other side now. They've moved north to Lake Michigan.
Okay, I didn't know you were so close. Yeah, I always figured you were born and raised in California. So
Yep,
interesting.
just the
And
last
you
10 years.
and you said,
Transplant to California.
okay, yeah. Well, given the weather, I can understand why. So you studied biology. Is that a degree? Like I want to say undergraduate. Is that right?
Yep, undergraduate. I had a concentration in neuroscience. I was always interested in the brain and how the brain perceives the world. I also had a very strong interest in art and really went back and forth between those two and ended up getting the equivalent of a minor in art history and studio art as well. So,
Fantastic. That probably
yeah,
explains a lot to do with your, love for photography and composition. And
absolutely.
then, yeah, okay, right on. So,
Never been quite able to decide which one I like more. So it's been nice to forge a career where I can not have to decide.
well, it sounds like you've forged a career of like both science and art at the same
Very much
time.
so.
Yeah, okay. Because I know you're a naturalist, conservationist, doing a lot of amazing work in the polar regions, Antarctica and the Arctic. So, I mean, if you graduated 4 years, how did you end up in the tourism industry? Like, what was your first job out of college?
It was a pretty circuitous path. My first job out of college was biomedical research. So I stuck with neuroscience for a while and then went over to oncology. And my goal eventually was to go to medical school, and I did. I went for a year and then decided that was not the right path. And when I left medical school, I was a little bit unmoored. I ended up doing real estate development for 7 years, which I enjoyed because it did have a science component. It very much had an art and design component, but we also did quite a bit of green building initiatives, which at that time and in that place in Ohio was not typical. So I got to really um, use some of my science knowledge, pursue some of my interest in environmentalism while working within that construct. But after about 7 or 8 years of that, it was enough. And I ended up going to Africa for a while on a personal basis and really loved being there. Wanted to find a way to work in Africa.
Mhm.
And after volunteering for a while in the conservation education realm, I ended up working in the safari business. So that was my entree into the
Tourism.
tourism, ecotourism
Yeah,
realm.
sure. Wow, that's actually pretty late in
Yeah,
comparison to a lot of
yeah.
people that I speak to in this industry. I mean, if you had graduated college, I assume you went right after high school, and then you worked like 7 years in real estate. I mean, you're talking about that's most of your 20s gone.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely it was. I joke that I tried to live a very normal life for a while. Definitely still had this idea at the time that I would have a family, that my career would be conventional, and then realized over time that that probably wasn't going to be me,
mhm,
wasn't really who I am, that I had that travel bug that I wanted to explore.
mhm.
And yeah, so I think in the end, it wasn't until I was around 30 that I dipped my toe into ecotourism, and it wasn't until my mid 30s where I really embraced it
Okay.
fully.
So, where did you go in Africa? What country?
I started in Botswana. I was
Nice.
working on a conservation education project where uh, previously orphaned and rehabilitated elephants were semi-captive, and the program at the time was to introduce people to how elephants perceive their environment, how they interact with their environment, and we would take them out with guests, and the guests would walk alongside them and get to interact with the environment with them. So big educational component, but experiential education, which I really liked, but that was for the most part a volunteer thing. So after some time, I worked in Kenya, managing a lodge, a safari lodge there, and also helping to manage a horse safari. So we would take guests out on horseback,
Mhm.
which is a fairly crazy concept, but
Uh, you
extremely fun.
Yeah, you'd actually be
Extremely
surprised.
fun.
The second last episode we did was with a Swedish wildlife photographer who's based in South Africa, and she went to work on a horse safari farm at the very beginning. That's how she got
Yep.
into South Africa. So we've actually already talked about that for like 15 minutes in a different episode. But
It's a pretty
wow,
crazy concept to ride a prey animal out into the African bush.
yeah.
It did have some of the adventures or misadventures that you'd expect doing that, but overall, it's a really neat concept if you're a good rider and adventurous.
Yeah, and starting in Botswana and then going up to
Mhm.
Kenya. I mean,
Yep.
that's great. That's similar-ish to how I landed in Africa for a travel experience too. You know, you kind of throw yourself in the deep end and see what happens. So that's how you kind of got the travel bug. I mean, had you traveled much in your 20s? Like, did you travel much in your childhood with your parents? I mean, tell me a little bit more about how you got that travel bug.
As a child, not so much. My mom and I went to France when I was in maybe fourth or fifth grade, and then she actually introduced me to Africa right after college. I was gifted a trip with her to Africa. So I think that really got the bug started. I did do some travel in my 20s on a personal basis. I spent a month in Mongolia. I did some more, little bit of personal travel in Africa. Um, Trying to think where else.
Did you have a camera
Uh,
then?
What's up?
Did you have a camera then?
I did have a camera. I thought I was a good photographer then. Looking back, not so much. I still have some of those images on slide film, but I don't know that they stand the test of time. They're really
Uh,
for years only at this point.
that's awesome though, because
Yeah,
yeah, I want to get into the photography side of it, but it's good to know that at this time, when you were kind of testing the waters with travel, that you did have a camera and you were shooting. Um,
absolutely. I started
yeah.
photography at 16. My parents gave me the camera they got for their wedding
Oh, come on. Well, let's
20
jump in.
years before.
We got to jump into the photography then. Come on. So you got
Completely manual, Pentax,
yeah, film camera from like the
black and white
70s.
film,
Uh,
darkroom developing. Yeah.
let's go. Okay, so you get this as a gift. It's obviously sentimental. You had some lenses as well. I mean, what did you start taking pictures of? Like what was the first kind of inspiration?
Oh gosh, whatever I could. Nature stuff. I was trying to do some studio type flowers, plants, that sort of thing. But I remember when I was 16, I won a little local photo contest, photographing a church at night. And that gave me some confidence that maybe, this was something I should pursue. And I did. But again, not very seriously. In high school and college, I did try to develop my own prints. In college, we had an old dark room in the science lab that was not being used anymore for science. So I convinced the administration to let me set up in there, and I made some darkroom prints there as well. But again, they don't they don't really stand the test of time now. But it is fun. I do still have some of those old prints.
Yeah, that's great to know, actually. I mean, I tend to focus a little too much on the travel experience and then bring photography in later, but that's really important, I guess, given where you are now as a professional photographer, still working within, this industry. So,
Yeah, it's definitely been a love for, I guess, 30 some years now.
okay, awesome. So what happened to that camera from your mom and dad?
I honestly don't know. Isn't that a shame? I wish I had
Yeah,
it. I
you don't
think
know
in
where
one
it
of these
is.
moves, I've always been a pretty itinerant person, so I've moved quite a bit and I tend to keep my possessions pretty light. So I'm sure in one of these moves it was given away.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
But
Yeah,
I do wish I had it. Keep your first camera.
for those listening and watching,
Yeah.
that's good advice right there. I, however, did not follow that advice. I don't have my first camera, definitely not. Yeah, but I also didn't shoot film. I started with a little point and shoot digital camera. So
Really?
yeah, for a gift from my mom actually when I was probably about 16, right at the
I
end of high
think
school.
starting with film and with slides has its pluses and minuses. I mean, you really needed to develop your technical acuity, but I still, to this day, have a hard time just holding down the shutter and doing burst because I remember that was 26, 28 images that you would have to take your roll of film and put it in a Ziploc bag and hand carry it through security and pay to develop it at home. So
Yeah.
I'm still reluctant to shoot as fast as I probably should now that digital is cheap.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people listening to this, excuse me, that can relate to that. Absolutely. All right, well, let's jump back into the travel. So you're going to Africa, you're doing voluntourism, you end up working at a safari lodge in Kenya. What year is this? Are we like 2012, 2011? When would
There
this
were
be?
multiple periods of living and working in Africa between about 2007 and 2012.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, let's jump back into Kenya. So, do you remember what you did after the safari launch?
Yeah, so I had had an amazing time, incredible experience, was still trying to figure out what I was going to do career-wise. There were still a couple of tangents there I tried, but nothing really seemed to fit. And I got an invitation from a then friend that operated a dive boat in the Dominican Republic, swimming with humpback whales.
Yeah.
And he agreed to take me on for a season, despite having very little experience either working on boats or in the dive industry. And it ended up being one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I ended up doing that for 2 seasons. And in that time, realized that living and working on ships was something I enjoyed. And Ended up after that moving to Alaska, where I worked on another ship and had the opportunity then to work my way up through the ranks, eventually to getting my captain's license.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew you had your captain's license. So that happened in Alaska, of all
It
places.
did happen in Alaska. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my
One of the
goodness.
things about Alaska is it counts as inland waters.
Oh,
It
nice.
allows you to kind of accelerate your trajectory to being a captain because you're not having to go offshore. So you can work with a slightly lower license and continue to accumulate days and experience.
Yeah. Okay. So, were you thinking at all about being a professional photographer at this time? Like when you got the job in the Dominican, whale
I
boat?
really wasn't. I assumed it would be something that was my passion. I was a little reluctant in some ways to try to make it a profession because I loved it, right? You don't always want to mix your passions and your profession. And to be honest, I'm just not sure I had the confidence to think that I could compete in that arena. But I certainly loved it. And early on, working in Alaska on a ship, I had a guest who was tipping us at the end of his expedition. And he said to me, it's very clear that you like photography.
Oh, this is what he gave
Rather
you
than
all his
giving you
gear, right?
a
I know
cash
this
tip, I
story.
just want you to pick something out of my camera bag. And I
Yes.
thought, you know, I'm looking at his camera bag at a lot of high-end equipment.
I'll
And I
take
said,
that and that and
well, I didn't.
that.
I was being very shy about it. And I said, do you mean like a memory card or, what are we talking here? And he said, I want you to take anything. And he really was pushing it. And there was kind of this twinkle in his eye. And I said, fine, I'll take your brand new 5D Mark III. And he ended up giving me lenses and, everything I needed to go with it. And that's when I got serious. So I
That's
think that was
amazing.
around 2015. And just to have somebody believe in me that way and to launch it that way. And then shortly after that, I was offered the opportunity to assist in leading photography workshops.
Okay, hold on.
Like,
I gotta stop you. I
yeah,
gotta stop you.
okay, I'll take a step back.
Because yeah, you told me that story, and I remember now, and I remember at the time being like, that is amazing. Like such an
Yeah,
incredibly nice thing for him to do, but also just like so inspirational and so
yeah.
different. I mean, I've never heard that before. It's like it's I have a similar story, funny enough, with the 5D Mark III. But yeah, you're the only person that I've heard who's had that experience. So what you're on the boat in Alaska. You're doing photography trips as the captain and also kind of like guiding like wildlife. Were you taking photos of bears or
I was
bald
first
eagles?
mate at that point,
Okay.
and there was a photo workshop on board at the time.
For
An instructor
wildlife and landscape?
for wildlife with an instructor who very kindly also sensed that I was interested and kind of pulled me in to see the process. And we were shooting bears, eagles in flight, whales. Alaska's so rich. Southeast Alaska is so rich for wildlife and
Yeah.
landscape.
And then this guy's on the boat with
Yep.
obviously an awesome kit, and you get tipped at the end of the experience, as is normal. And in this industry, sometimes the tips are quite good. It's not uncommon.
Not usually that good though.
That's where the story is a bit incredible.
Yeah.
So, just for those listening again, the tip was a brand new Canon 5D Mark III, which at the time was, I mean, a fantastic DSLR, game changer for Canon. It was the brick. I mean, it was a fantastic camera. That and the 5D Mark IV, but the 5D Mark III, I also owned it. I mean, it was just a game changer. It built my business. So very, very nice to have. I mean, were you shooting Canon at the time or?
I was, but I had something very old and not particularly helpful to what I was trying to do. And yeah, it really was a game changer for me, both the kindness and the inspiration of this gentleman and his wife, and also, to have access to the equipment that I wouldn't have done for myself.
Are you still in touch with them?
He has unfortunately passed away. His wife, I haven't spoken to in several years. Both lovely humans, but yeah, it was very sad that he passed away a number of years ago.
Wow.
He was
Well,
probably in his late 60s or 70s at the time.
I hope that he's like knows, the photos that you have, because that may have been the small spark that led to like years and years of just fantastic images. So,
Yeah,
very,
I hope I
very cool
did.
story.
I hope I did make it clear
Yeah.
at the time.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. Okay, let's move on. That was very
They actually
dramatic and
did go on a
emotional.
photo workshop with me a couple of years later.
Ah, nice. That's great.
So they got to see my career getting launched and they knew where they were a part of it.
Good. Okay. Well, let's jump off from that spot then. So you're in Alaska. You get this amazing gift. Do you stay in Alaska for another couple seasons? I mean, what happens from there?
Yeah, I worked on that vessel for about a season and a half and then moved to another vessel where I had the opportunity to be captain for a season. And then that one got sold, which is something that happens in this industry when you're working in private yachts.
Sure.
And I made the jump to expedition teams, I think in 2017, 18.
With your first expedition going to where?
It was all in
Arctic?
Alaska. So I've been in
Oh,
Alaska almost every summer since 2015, I think with just one exception during COVID. So in various
yeah.
capacities, mostly on expedition teams much of the last decade.
I did not know that. So you must have some
Yeah.
awesome like bear photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Sweet.
really like the expedition team concept. Being captain was an adventure. It was fun, but it is very all encompassing. You have a lot of responsibility. You have a lot of roles. I prefer being on the team. It gives you a little bit of a chance to rest. There's some give and take. There's more of an opportunity to be a naturalist, to take photos, to get off the ship and out into the wild spaces. So that's been my preference most recently.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's how I know you as well. Like, when you told me you're a captain, I was like, oh, cool, but I couldn't really picture it. So, yeah, you fit that role, being out on the zodiacs and telling people about the nature right in front of them,
Yeah,
very
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 much so.
well. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're in Alaska at least once summer every year for the last 10 years. How did you make the transition from Alaska to like the Arctic and the Antarctic?
Well, I think once you get a taste for travel, you just want more, right? But working in expedition ships gave me that opportunity because a lot of the companies that you work for do tend to be fairly international. Not all of them, but they do tend to go around with these ships seasonally around the world. So once you get yourself established, there's opportunities to try other areas. And Antarctica was always such a dream for me. I think, until you go there, and even after you go there, it's the last really true unexplored wilderness. There's just so much we still don't know. There's so much we haven't seen. It's relatively untouched. No part of our planet is untouched at this point in some fashion, but it just seemed like that last frontier. I couldn't wait to get there. And when I applied, the company I worked for in Alaska, unfortunately, did not have a program that went down there. So I applied to the company that I still work for now, the one where you and I met. And they said, well, you seem very skilled as far as working on ships and such, but we only have one role available down here this season, and that's for ornithologist. Are you an ornithologist? And I said, yes, I am. And at that point, I probably, if you had asked me about the birds of Antarctica, would have said penguins. But I had 6 months to prepare, and I just did a really deep dive and created my lectures and just learned as much as I could about birds and ecology of the region. And fortunately, there aren't that many birds in Antarctica. So I was able to put that together in 6 months and must have done okay because I'm going to be working as ornithologist this season as well. I have
Amazing.
every year since.
Good for
studied.
you. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah,
Well, I
alternating
mean,
between ornithologist and photographer.
yeah, I mean, you study biology, right? So that
Yeah.
counts. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the basics, anatomy,
Uh,
physiology, but learning the ecology in such a different region of the world took some work.
yeah.
But it's also fascinating. I mean, the fact that life exists down there and the adaptations that are needed to exist down there, it's so easy to study because it's so fascinating.
Mhm. So, I mean, it's interesting though, because that in my mind doesn't really still have anything to do with photography yet. So you're still doing it as a hobby at this point, but you've got all professional gear. you're shooting all Canon. Did you like, when did you start to transition into like photo workshops, like thinking, okay, I can be the photo leader, I can teach editing, etc.
About the same time. I think actually the photo workshops might have been 1 year before I went to Antarctica in an expedition ship capacity. I went on a photo workshop, and I started on the workshops as a naturalist. That was my in.
Okay.
That I would accompany the group, that I would inspire people by teaching them about what they were photographing, help them connect with their subject, help them to learn, the
Patterns.
behavior, the ecology
Yeah.
of their subject so they could get better photos. And on that first workshop, I just kind of kept offering little photo tips and, well, come look at this photo. And, all of the feedback at the time was that people enjoyed what I had to offer in that regard. And the next one I went on, they sent me as the photographer and naturalist. I kind of kept both roles the whole time because I do love how art can inform science and science can inform art. That dichotomy again. So I truly believe that if you're going to be a good wildlife photographer, you need to be a naturalist as well. So I did stay on for 5 or 6 years in that capacity, and took a little break from workshops for a while and went full on in ships most of the last couple of years because I just wanted to spend more extended time in one place for a while. And now I'm starting to get back to photo workshops as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like you're living on a ship, yeah, for what, 4 months, 5 months?
Usually about 6 weeks to 8 weeks at a time.
Okay. And then how much time would you be off the ship?
Usually about 6 to 8 weeks on and then a month off.
Ah, okay. That's not that
You
bad.
don't get any days off while you're living on board. You're working
True.
16-hour days, 7 days a week. So
True.
you do tend to have that really intense period of work and then downtime to catch up with life and relationships.
Yeah. And then back on the ship.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So, where was the first workshop then? Was it in Alaska?
It was in Antarctica, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, no
so I
way.
did my first contract on expedition ships and my first photo workshop the same year, nearly back to back in Antarctica. So set the goal of going there and went big.
Yeah. Check.
Yeah, and
Check.
I've been there
Complete.
every year since as well. So
Amazing.
it's definitely a place that's captured my imagination as
Yeah.
here as well.
So when we crossed the circle earlier this year, was that the furthest south that you've ever been?
I don't know if that particular trip was the furthest south, but my experience in Antarctica has all been on the peninsula. I have not had the opportunity to go to other regions of the continent. So yeah, that would have certainly been among my most furthest south.
Yeah, we just had an amazing experience. It was
We
something like
did, and we
Red
had
Rock Ridge.
incredible luck this year with ice. Obviously
Yeah.
getting south requires luck and the skill of the captain, which we certainly had in order to traverse passes full of ice.
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen the videos, Lisa was featured in a couple of the videos that I made earlier this year in Antarctica, and we just had an amazing experience. So, yeah, I'm learning so much about you. It's really awesome that you came on to take the time. When did you go to Svalbard? Like, haven't you been to the Arctic, haven't you?
I have quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Was that so? Would you do like an Antarctica season in 2018, 2019, and then the summer you would go up to the Arctic?
Initially, I was staying in Alaska, so I would do Antarctica and then Alaska. But again, I was doing workshops in other areas as well too. So Africa, Mongolia, Galapagos, the U.S. But when you work in Antarctica, you hear a lot about the Arctic. Many of us are nearly exclusively polar guides. We refer to ourselves as bipolar. So you hear about the Arctic, the comparisons, the contrasts, and very much wanted to go. But again, the company I was working for didn't have an Arctic program. So it took me a little bit of time to break into that aspect of the industry up there, and ended up starting on small ships, I believe, in 2021.
Okay, post-pandemic.
Yeah. So it started in Iceland, had 1 or 2 workshops in Svalbard, and then started working on expedition ships in Svalbard. So I've had quite a bit of experience in Svalbard itself, but also Iceland and Greenland. And my Greenland trip was on an icebreaker. So we were able to get quite a bit far north and really see that ecology of being in the sea ice, which was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Svalbard is a really special place. And the Arctic itself is so different from the Antarctic. You know, it's easy on first glance to think they're both just icy realms. Surely they're similar, but they really aren't. They're quite different.
Yeah, I bet. I'm very keen to get much further north as well. I think once you get that buggy going very far south, as you say, you're like, well, where do we go next? You know, it's terrible. It's like human nature. We're such like just animals when it comes to exploring. We're just like, we got to go further. Like, give me more. It's interesting. All right. So I love how you just casually drop in Mongolia, Galapagos, Africa, all in between the Antarctic and the Arctic and Alaska. So what's Mongolia? Where does that come from? You spent a month in Mongolia when you're in your 20s, which I love, by the way. I mean, Mongolia, I just got back from there. It's wild still. So you're in Mongolia, over a decade ago. What took you back to Mongolia? Like, do you really like Mongolia?
You're giving me too much credit for how old I am, Greg. It was a few decades ago.
Sorry.
But I think I was about 24 when I went. And I actually saw an article in National Geographic. I think it was Gordon Wiltsey was the photographer, about doing the migration from the summer grazing grounds to the winter grazing grounds with these nomadic families. And I thought, I want to do that. And I don't know, I just had this single-minded confidence and of youth, I guess, that surely this must be possible. And I contacted, in the article, they had mentioned the couple in Montana that had put together this trip for them. And I contacted them and I said, I want to do this. And there's kind of this quiet on the phone. And they said, well, if you do realize you would be doing this alone, like the National Geographic team had a team. They had tents and support vehicles. And, obviously we can't provide that for you. So you would be just on horseback with 3 or 4 men who don't speak your language. And, it's going to be a month. It's risky. It's going to be negative 30 degrees. You're on horseback 14 hours a day. You have to slaughter your own sheep along the way to eat. Do you want to do this? And I said, absolutely. Sign me up. My parents were horrified. But I went and I did it. It was one of the most challenging things I've ever done, but it just was such an incredible experience. And Mongolia was really still stuck in my imagination after that for so long. I had spent time living with the eagle hunters and these nomadic people, and just really fell in love with the country, with the lifestyle, but didn't get an opportunity to go back until I got the opportunity to do it on a photo workshop. And it was very much different 20 years later. The country is growing very quickly in ways that are good, I think, for the people, and in ways that maybe aren't as good, especially for the environment.
Yeah, Ulaanbaatar it's really polluted in the winter.
It is, yeah. And Ulaanbaatar, when I first went there, was, mostly single-story buildings, and people would heat and cook by fire, and you'd see goats hanging out of the back of broken down Toyotas and Chinese vehicles, and now it's skyscrapers and very sleek cars and upscale boutiques and restaurants and
terrible traffic, and then all the gurs are around the city, and they're still burning coal because a lot of that Mongolian tradition is still there, right? And especially in the winter, and our local guide was like, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't raise a family in this air quality. And I was like, oh, shit.
And of course, we should never begrudge people progress and a better quality of life. But I think the rate at which it's grown has certainly produced its own challenges, but still an absolutely amazing country, amazing culture, warm people.
Yeah, well, once you get out of the city, I mean, it's wild. Like this, it's super sparsely populated, so... We saw a snow leopard, wild snow leopard.
Amazing. Yeah, that's one of the better places to go now for that. I have not had that experience.
Unbelievable. The guy said the tracking team, the one guy who was leading the camp, it's like a summer camp. He said that if you stay for 5 to 7 days, he can guarantee it, like 95%, which I thought was amazing. And they're not, baiting or tracked with like collars or any of that stuff. It's just like you have a network of trackers that go out there and search for it, and then they radio in, and off you go looking for it. Amazing.
Well, I'm always happy to hear that there are, ecotourism initiatives that hopefully are done well and are sustainable and have the animal's interest in mind. And,
Yeah.
it's never great that we have to sort of monetize or commercialize wildlife, but at the same time, if, that helps preserve the habitats and the wildlife themselves, if they are perceived as having that kind of value, then hopefully it can be sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and that's just where they see the value, these guys, because we paid to be there, right, and paid a pretty good rate, and we were able to see it. And I think in Mongolia, they are, I guess, lucky in a sense that there is good education towards sustainable tourism, and they do have a huge tourism industry that relies a lot on locals supporting that with vehicles and lodging and food and whatnot. So they in my opinion, they did a great job. Yeah, I think they did a really good job. And I studied adventure tourism in Canada, and I have a lot of experience here too. So it was nice to see.
Good. I'm glad to hear that positive feedback.
Yeah, it was good.
An experience I haven't had. So
okay, now I mean, we could jump down that rabbit hole of sustainable tourism and tourism development, but I don't know. I guess I'm just really interested in your story. Like,
sure.
So you wanted to be a doctor, but now you're a professional travel photographer.
That's a big shift. Huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you still love the science? Like
I do. I do. The reason I left medical school is I actually had cancer as an undergrad. And at the time, obviously, that was a lot of trauma. It was a lot to deal with. I probably should have taken some time off, but going directly to medical school, just at the time, I didn't feel that I could sit with people during their most difficult moments. But I still very much loved certain aspects of the clinical experience. I love the problem solving. I love the way the body works in science. And one thing I didn't mention in this circuitous trajectory is I actually went to vet school for a year as well. Thinking that I could take aspects of medicine that I liked and apply it to animal medicine. But there were challenges there as well. I was interested in wildlife, epidemiology. The debt to income ratio was not favorable in my 30s.
True.
So at the time, I just decided to pursue the educational route. I really wanted to be out in these wild places. I wanted to inspire people. To teach, to be in that moment with people. So, yeah, I've never looked back with regrets, but it did take some time to come around to this being the path.
Yeah, yeah.
When the other one felt fairly destined for a while.
Right, and you had cancer, so you're a cancer survivor. You go through chemo and radiation therapy,
radiation and surgery. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay. Wow.
It's a pretty formidable experience for a 20-year-old. Definitely makes you feel that you shouldn't sit around waiting for life to happen to you. You need to go out and pursue what you love and look for opportunities because you may not have forever to do so.
Hell yeah. Just clip that quote out of this podcast and put it on the wall. Thank you. That was
one of the big takeaways from that experience.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, that's so inspirational. I hope the people listening and watching are paying close attention because what a story. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. So you're still working in as a naturalist, as a guide, as an expedition leader, onboard photographer, workshop leader. You just have such a fantastic story. Do you still feel that urge to get out there? Like, are you excited about your next adventures? I mean, what keeps you going? What's your inspiration?
Absolutely. I have had no diminishment in my enthusiasm for travel, and yeah, I love it. I love it. I love inspiring people. I love being out there, introducing people to these wild places. And I think it's so important. We're losing this connection with nature. I think increasingly so, people aren't necessarily having these experiences, but at the same time, we're craving these experiences more than ever. I think there's quite a lot of data on that we need nature and we need these wild places and we need people to experience them just to still have that connection.
Yeah, and you want to be like a guide,
Yeah,
showing people how to get
and
there.
I love the variety of my job. You've mentioned a couple of times that I'm a naturalist and a captain and a guide and leader and team member and all of these things. And it's been great that I haven't had to pick between them. That this industry allows you to work for multiple different companies and multiple different capacities and expand your skills and keep the variety that keeps you interested and focused.
Yeah, and inspired.
Yeah.
And what about from the photography standpoint? Are you still always searching for, new compositions, new wildlife encounters?
For sure, wildlife encounters. I'm trying to do more landscape as well. Itself, yeah.
Nice.
I know, a surprise.
That's
But
good to
also
hear.
because I think wildlife without landscape skills, you can take those pictures at the zoo. I'm really trying to push myself more to explore wildlife in their environment to make them less a component of the scene and more, the main component and more a component of the broader habitat and landscape. And I am pushing myself to do more storytelling. I'd like to be able to use my images for conservation more than I am now. That's a goal of mine.
Is it?
To have impact with them.
Yeah, sure. Did you see, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, but I also work in this industry. Did you see the two recent winners of the Natural History Museum's Wildlife Photographer of the Year?
I did.
So those two
Very
kind of,
inspirational.
yeah, that sort of nails the head to me of what you just said, putting the wildlife really in an environment tells a story, it's kind of mixing the human element with the wild and the nature. And that's something that I think we need to try and search for more, because I often fall into the trap of trying to get like a portrait or just a kill shot or something like very dramatic, and I don't think about like the wildlife in my own backyard. Like there's stuff that happens with, like, I don't know, raccoons in Canada or squirrels, where you can get really unique wildlife photos that tell a story.
We need to be telling those stories. Wildlife is so threatened, and photography is such a powerful format for awareness, for education, for inspiration.
Yeah.
But we have to get it out there, and it has to be, done effectively, and it has to engage people's imagination.
While it's yeah, sorry, we're talking over each other. While it's still real, is what, like, I'm afraid that these photos in the future, people might not be able to tell if it's actually real. They might be like, well, was that a computer generated image, And that's really scary if we lose that sense of truth. So we're still living in a place where I think we have that, you can share a photo and people, their first reaction isn't like, is that real or not? Their first reaction is like, oh, wow, that tells a really powerful story. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next sort of 5 to 10 years in regard to photography. But I think the travel experience, which you touched on earlier, will still always be very sought after. People are going to want to put themselves into nature. They're going to want to disconnect.
I think more and more so. And we're really noting in the last decade, but even in just the last few years, more so, that people are coming on these trips also wanting to tell stories. So it used to be that, I want that headshot of the lion or the polar bear or the penguin, and now they're so much more receptive to, well, let's pull back and think about how this environment's changing and how do we capture that and how do we make an impactful photo in that way? And people want to know more about the issues. They want to come to the lectures. They want to know what they should be aware of and what they should go home and try to convey to others. They're more invested in these places than I've seen And I think that's a really good change. I think it's a change that needs to happen. And it's inspiring for me as an educator and a naturalist and a photographer to see that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to hear you say that. That's really, really good. What were it's Antarctic Ambassadors, yeah? The program on the ship. That's good stuff. Okay, I've got a question for you. How would you define the genre of travel photography?
How would I define? Oh gosh, is there one genre?
No, it's like kind of an umbrella.
Yeah.
What is travel photography to you?
It's going to a place, having an experience, and finding a way to have my images match my experience. And yeah, gosh, yeah, just having what I bring home match what was in my head of what I experienced. So again, that's not just going and getting a bunch of isolated wildlife shots. That's getting the wildlife, that's getting the landscape, that's getting the people, and putting it together in a way that when I look at those images or someone else looks at those images, they have a sense of what the entire experience was.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time. I feel like I could talk to you for a lot longer, but this has been just a really good opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. So for those listening and watching this video, be sure to check out the links to Lisa's work in the description and give her a follow because you will be very inspired by her work. So Lisa, do you want to have any like closing thoughts or statements for the viewers?
Just get out there, travel, think about who you're traveling with, that you're doing it in a way that's sustainable, that's going to benefit the people and places that you're visiting. Immerse yourself entirely, learn as much as you can, and try to come back with those stories to inspire others.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. And hope you have a great day in California. I am about to go to bed. I'm tired, but it's been a long day. And yeah, I hope you have a good time in the sun and have a great weekend. Thanks for joining the
Thank you,
podcast.
Greg. Been great catching up.
See ya.